Okay guys, this is the patch 7.1 notes rundown. I took a brief look over the patch notes just to see if it was going to be a big patch or if it was going to be a giant change. I feel like the 7.1 patch is not actually that big after having glanced over it, and I think that's primarily because LCS and LCK, LPL, etc., all the major tournaments are starting soon, so we're probably going to wait and see what happens in the first weeks of LCS, I'm assuming, and then we'll probably see major balance changes. But I'm not Ryan, so I can't actually make that prediction. So anyways, getting into it, Anivia, R flashes when finished expanding, fixed a bug with R's expansion time. This is just obviously a visual bug. There's really nothing to add here. Anivia is not really in a spot where I don't think that she's going to be in the meta. She rose to popularity briefly in Korea when Vladimir was popular, because a lot of Koreans saw her as a Vladimir counter, but outside of that, her kit just doesn't really function in the current meta and basically what is desired out of mid lane champions. So anyways, Camille, health per level down, passive shield duration down, R stun duration decreased. This is something that, as a spectator, I am a little bit disappointed in because now we don't get to see Camille either get a pick banned 100% of the time in competitive, or we just get to see her face roll people. But definitely she needed a nerf. Health growth stat 95 to 85. That's pretty standard. So she actually loses a ruby crystal at level 18 basically, which that's a pretty big deal. It's like 400 gold missing. Passive adaptive defenses, 1.5 to 2.5 second scaling to 1.5. I feel like that's pretty fair, because her shield definitely is what enables her to sometime out-trade most of the laners in lane, and this does enable more of a reasonable response time or a reasonable duration to hold abilities without attacking into her passive. Hookshot, not a ninja. Slightly increased radius where Camille will now reveal herself if hookshotting near enemies while she is in Fog of War. I feel like that's a pretty balanced change that mostly targets jungle Camille, which definitely isn't the most popular. I feel like top lane Camille is the most popular currently. So while it's a pretty neat change, and it definitely does help bring her in line a little bit, especially in mid-game situations where she looks to make a lot of plays with the hookshot from the Fog of War, it's not going to be gigantic. R, the Hextech Ultimatum, knockaway speed 600 to 1000. Knockaway stun now only lasts until the target lands, rather than a 1 second duration fixed. I don't feel like that's really the problem with her ultimate. The problem with her ultimate is the fact that she goes invulnerable, which is a little bit obnoxious. Overall, looking at these changes, I don't think this is what's actually needed to bring Camille in line. When you think about it, yeah, she's going to be losing about 50 HP or so at the level 6 trade, and 50 HP is a pretty big deal when you factor in laners that are level 5 and 6 and possibly a jungler gank, but overall, I don't think that really does enough. The passive adaptive defenses maybe also causes her to lose a little bit more HP, and maybe we're looking at her losing like 100 to 125 HP in lane pre-level 6, which you can think that that's really big, but then as long as Camille's are intelligent and they go about, conducting their trades in a more efficient manner, then it's obviously going to just be able to be worked around. I think that the nerf to her R isn't really that good, and so I was actually a little bit worried that we weren't going to see her in competitive, but just reading these changes, this is not enough to bring her out of the limelight, and we will definitely probably see her in competitive matches as one of the S-tier top laners, and potentially even the jungle, although I'm not so certain about that. Okay, Draven. Q now has base damage and scales off bonus attack, not total attack damage. W mana cost down at lower ranks. So now he gets 30 to 50 scaling base damage on his Q spinning axe, 65 to 105% bonus attack damage. So he deals more damage early on, and this is kind of nice because the AD carry meta, or should I say AP carry meta, is a little bit stale right now in bot lane, where basically it's Jhin, Caitlyn, and Ezreal all day, every day. At least in Korea, that's the current trend. And then I know in North America and possibly Europe, there is, Cassiopeia and Ziggs popping up a lot, although that trend hasn't seemed to have hit Korea just yet, and maybe it will at a later date, but for now it's really nice to see another attack damage carry get some love, and Draven is a little bit interesting. The problem with Draven, though, I don't think is his Q or his W. I think that the primary problem with him is that his passive is reliant on either forcing a mistake of your opponent or outplaying your opponent, and it's basically just an accelerator to get more ahead. And I think that any passive that coordinates itself in that manner is pretty bad. I always have a problem with some of the passives inside of League where they just don't really make sense. I mean, you take a look at Shyvana or Wukong and you actually factor in the gold worth of their passives and they're absolutely terrible. Draven is basically a dumbed down version of Twisted Fate's passive, and I just don't get how that's supposed to be fair. The fact that he has to secure the kills in order to get gold doesn't really seem that fair. And I mean, the gold value that he's actually going to get from the kills is probably still less than what Twisted Fate gets just from killing minions. And so at the end of the day, it doesn't really make sense to me why he doesn't have somewhat of a better passive. And I think that if they just changed his passive in addition to the Q and the W, it would help bring him more in line. Also, one of the problems that he's having in bot lane is that Jhin and Caitlyn are both pretty okay against him, and it's not like he has a lot of matchups right now where he can be a gigantic bully, and also there is some support dependency on that. And it's just very easy to play around Draven and then just basically nullify him in the mid game. So while this is nice for solo queue, I don't think it's going to do anything for competitive. I don't expect to make this, or to see him pop into pro play, primarily, again, because it can be played around. But I think it's really great for solo queue. And I'm sure that Tyler 1's happy. Big brother. Anyways, Kalista. Ren keeps stacking while it's on cooldown and only requires 1 unit kill for the mana refund. E, Ren, basic attacks, and Q pierce add a spear to enemies at all times. Mana refund, 2 units killed, 1 unit killed. This isn't Kalista's problem. This is not Kalista's problem by any means. The problem for Kalista right now is the itemization is poor for her build path. And the other issue that she ends up facing is that her mid-game relevance is just not really there. The other thing is basically every popular ADC right now, with the exception of Ezreal, just completely outclasses her at exactly what ADCs are needed to do right now. Oddly enough, though, the thing that ADCs are experiencing difficulty with, Kalista normally excels at, but I think having changes like this is definitely not enough to propel her back into the meta. So she either needs the itemization for AD carries to get mixed up, or she's going to need some sort of balance change to bring her back in line. Maybe they could have changed her like 0.9 AD ratio on auto attacks to scale up to 100 AD or something and bring her back that way. But changes like this are not going to make our lovely green ADC come back into the meta. Karma. Mantra W damage only ticks twice, Mantra to E shield lower. I feel like this is primarily focused at support Karma. So the problem that you would normally experience with the Liandry's is not going to be found inside of the W. It also, I think, makes Karma deal more damage, if I'm correct, with the W. But the E Defiant Shield going down by such a small amount, I don't think really impacts it that much. Because when you factor in how often is the total shield actually absorbed, it's probably not that much. Maybe at the end of the day, AD carries are going to lose like 20 extra HP in lane, which I guess that can be pretty gigantic, but this definitely is not going to be enough to move her out of the support role. And so we're still going to continue to see like Karma, Malzahar, occasionally Zyra, and all those common cookie cutter supports in bottom. So I think this is fine, basically. It's a nice little balance change. Kennen. Kennen's ultimate damage now weighted towards the end, not the beginning. So damage per ball, 80 to 210 scaling, 0.4 ability power, to 40 to 110 scaling, 0.2 ability power. Successive strike moderator, 100 to 50 per, or 100, wait, what? 175, or 50% damage on strikes, 1 through 6 per target. 100 to 150 damage on strikes, 1 through 6. Okay, so he's rewarded for getting off an extended full ultimate, which this will definitely be good with Kennen getting flank teleport towards and getting, coordinated gameplay. But overall, this is going to be a hit to Kennen in the early game. It's going to be more difficult for him to actually find solo kills on opponents. It's definitely going to nerf him up in top lane. This is going to make some of his matchups a little bit more difficult, where he's already susceptible to getting bullied in. But beyond that, I think that this is a pretty okay balance change for competitive. So in that light, I'm excited to see it, because Kennen is still one of the top tier top laners, and I think that this is nice for teams. But if Kennen does fall behind, then I can see it actually being a little bit more problematic, given that he's going to be brought in line much easier. Lee Sin, modernization on E and toning down damage on R, okay? No longer reveals invisible targets. That's not really so bad. I mean, how often does Lee Sin actually fight against Teemo? That's not really going to matter so much. So I don't see that being too problematic of a balance change. It's pretty fair. Dragon's Rage, 200 to 600 damage scaling to 150 to 450. This is actually really, really, really big. The fact that he loses 100 damage at tier 2 ultimate is pretty problematic for him. And I feel like this is an okay balance change. A lot of people like to complain about Lee Sin getting nerfed gradually over time, but the nerfs are really never able to remove him from the game. Generally, that's either going to be a factor of because of who the current meta junglers are, or because of who the laners are, or it's going to be because of the jungle camps themselves. Lee Sin's kit in itself is just way too good. He has gap close, he has disengage, he has engage, he has his shields, he has percent. I think he even still has his vampirism and stuff, right? And overall, he's just too good of a jungler. So when other junglers are hurting, of course, his mobility and just what he can do is something that's really, really nice. Another thing is that because he's a physical damage jungler, he plays really well into metas where traditionally you see a magic top and a magic mid laner, or like AP top, AP mid. So he's not going anywhere with these changes, but I think that the change to his R is definitely a fair balance change. Lucian, passive damage up at early levels, Q damage scaling increased, damage 30 to 60% total attack damage at levels 1, 6, 11, 16, changed to 40 to 60% total attack damage 1, 7, 13. But anyways, that's not enough to bring Lucian back. Q piercing light 80 to 200 to 80 to 220. I mean, this just is not actually enough. You're giving him more damage late when his problem is that he sucks early. Well, I mean, I guess he's getting a little bit more damage early on, right? But this kind of buff to his damage is not why Lucian sucks. This is not the problem that he's experiencing. The problem is that he can't actually compete with the current ADCs, given how their kits coordinate, especially with how they coordinate with supports. And in addition to that, just the damage that they offer and the utility they offer in the mid game. One of the other problems is that the itemization change, which ended up occurring a very long time ago, also indirectly hit Lucian. The loss of the Yumu's build is also a hit to him indirectly. I theorized that maybe the Triforce Blade of the Ruin King build could come back. I just haven't seen it at all. And anytime I've talked to Challenger ADC, they've basically all voiced their concern with Lucian basically just not doing anything. And while his mobility is really nice, there's no reason to really have a Lucian when you can just have an Ezreal, at least in the current meta. So, I mean, this is not going to be enough to bring Lucian back. If you want to bring Lucian back, then you're probably going to need to give him back his range. So anyways, Poppy. Passive shield duration down, snapcast ultimate damage halved. Okay, passive Iron Ambassador 5 to 3 seconds. I feel like that's really, really, really cool. Because this gives a lot more ability to top laners to trade against her. And it also isn't as, I guess, damaging for getting caught out by a stun and popped into a wall while she has the Iron Ambassador up, where she just gets off a mega trade for free. I think that that's a pretty fair balance change to her. Our Keeper's Verdict damage getting completely gutted, I think is really nice for the solo kills in top lane, and also for, the split push where Poppy tries to kill you later on in the game. The damage being removed, I think, is pretty fair. However, I still don't think that this changes the core problem, that Poppy's itemization and her percentage HP and just her kit in general is too problematic, and I think that the microseconds that are being removed from the passive Iron Ambassador and the I mean, if Poppy's gonna kill you, that amount, she doesn't build damage, right? She doesn't build any damage. All right, let's just be honest with that. So the bonus attack damage is negligible. So in reality, yes, she's missing 200 damage, but that just means that she either has to hit you with an Iceborne Gauntlet again, or she has to stay on you for one more Q. And while that is really big, if the question is okay, Poppy's doing this late game split pushing against a Trundle, or she's split pushing against a Fiora, or she's split pushing against a Jayce, this is not going to be the deciding factor on if she kills you or not. Also, if we're talking about Poppy flashing in and snapcasting her ultimate as an engagement tool, I mean, her team's not worried about her dealing 200 damage less as an engagement tool. It's just not actually going to happen. So I don't know how this is seen as a nerf. But again, as I said at the very beginning of this video, it's probably that Riot is just taking it slow and seeing how everything pans out, because there has been quite a very long time since the last actual competitive tournament, so they might not want to make too many drastic changes. Okay, Ryze, less shield and movement speed on Q. Old shield 60 to 200 at levels 1 through 18. New shield 65 to 150 at levels 1 through 18. Okay, so it's going to be rewarded for the trades early on, and then it's going to get cut at later levels where Ryze does become obnoxious, though this definitely does attack his late game scaling. Bonus movement speed 25 to 40% now instead of 25 to 50%. What does this mean? It means that he loses boots. So he gets knocked down tier 1 boots, roughly, at max rank. That's not really that bad either. Again, these changes are not going to remove Ryze from the mid lane meta, and he is still going to be one of the top mid lane champions because he can keep a lot of champions in line, and he has a pretty good amount of favorable matchups. Okay, Shyvana, W no longer deals damage to monsters. Burnout, Forest Fireflies, Burnout no longer deals 20% bonus damage to monsters. This seems like a very random change, and it almost makes me feel like someone was like losing. It's basically the same exact thing as like the Volibear change a very long time ago. If anyone remembers, Volibear was randomly changed, and everyone was sort of just looking at it like, what? Like, how did Volibear get nerfed? And the comment was that I think Volibear was, doing a lot in SoloQ. No, he wasn't. Maybe at like bronze and silver, Volibear does a lot, right? But that's because he's fundamentally so simple that it's really easy for people not to make mistakes on him. So of course he seems oppressive, right? But you don't balance. Well, I'm of the opinion that you don't balance champions specifically for the absolute lowest tiers. Shyvana's not a problem in high MMR. She's not going to be a problem in competitive play because her kit fundamentally just sucks. The other problem is that her passive is absolutely and utter trash. You don't give someone a passive that assumes that they're going to be able to capture dragons, okay? There are competitive games where dragons don't even get captured until 20, 25 minutes sometimes, right? And, if you make the argument that, oh, well, if you draft Shyvana, then you should, make it, you should intentionally go after her and capture dragons. For what? Her cloth armor is barely worth a fucking chain vest and a Negatron. Like, it is completely useless almost. And I mean, it ties in line with Wukong, which is another abomination of a champion. But Shyvana is like one of those examples of a champion that just doesn't actually have a passive. I mean, it's really nice for SoloQ, right? Like, you can easily just capture Drakes in SoloQ, and it's a nice little addition to her, but to say that it's actually going to change a game or something, I think is laughable. The extra damage to monsters, I think, is pointless because she's not a good jungler anyway. So anyways, Syndra, W damage and ratio down, passive W bonus changed, R cooldowns up at early ranks. Going up at early ranks is pretty nice. The extra 20 seconds added, I mean, when we factor in cooldown reduction, it's not going to be so bad, but it is definitely going to be noticed at the pro level. Transcendent bonus grabs up to 3 spheres, deals 20% bonus true damage. Damage 80 to 240 scaling, 270 to 230 scaling, ratio 0.8 ability power to 0.7 ability power. The thing here is this hurts bad Syndras, it's a buff to good Syndras. So I think that what Riot was trying to do was find a nerf to Syndra. This wasn't really a nerf to Syndra, or at least I don't think that it is. Well, yeah, I don't think that it is. I mean, giving a professional Syndra 20% bonus true damage. So the argument is that it's more difficult for Syndra to hold her spears and get off the 7-orb ultimate. So while this probably will have some impact in pro play, when the Syndra is going to be under pressure to just get out an ultimate that has 5 or 6 orbs or something, okay, yeah, sure. That definitely is going to be a problem. But when we're talking about a 40% CDR Syndra at the professional level, they're not really going to have difficulty getting out the 7-orb ultimate late game or, late mid game, in which case it's just going to be a buff. I mean, it's probably even a buff early on, actually, for professional Syndras in lane. But, oh, no, actually, no, it's not, because they're not going to probably be able to actually get off too big of an ult. But I think in the mid game, like around the time when Syndra starts hitting like 12, 13, 14, etc., that's when it's going to end up being a buff. So it's bringing her down a little bit, but it's not really going to matter that much. This isn't what makes Syndra so oppressive. I almost question if like this balance change... the other fucking thing is, where the hell is Jayce? What the fuck is this? Did they just like forget? They're like, well, man, he's the defender of tomorrow. Like, where the hell is Jayce? How the fuck can anyone look at that champion and think that that's fair? They nerf Poppy, and then Jayce goes untouched, and they nerf Kennen. They just want Jayce to... Are they like fucking... Hold on, let me check if there's a Jayce skin. Is there a fucking Jayce skin coming out? Hold on, give me a second here. Azir, Garen. No, there's no Jayce skin. I don't know what's up with that. We're gonna need some thinking emojis on what the hell is going on here. Better nerf Shyvana, though. Alright. So Talon, Q sustain up, mono regeneration per level up. This doesn't really matter. I theorize that Talon should actually be played top lane, and he should be played as a champion that actually builds tanky with HP. So like Titanic Hydra, Sterax, and stuff like that. I don't think that he has any business being played mid, especially not with how good professional mid laners are. I mean, I guess this is a buff to people that play mid lane Talon and low MMR. But for the most part, I don't think that this is really going to do anything him. It's not going to propel him into the meta. It's not going to give him more favorable matchups in top lane or mid lane. It just doesn't do anything. It's just basically a novelty buff that doesn't have any business really making people concerned with if it's going to make him relevant or not. So anyways, Elementalist Lux visual update. I don't really care about that. Items, ZZ'Rot Portal. Void Gate duration 150 seconds to 120 seconds, cooldown 150 seconds to 120 seconds. Void Spawn structure damage 5 per level, max 90 to 20 per level, max 360. Okay. Void Spawn health scaling no longer gains 50 health per level. Void Spawn health decay 20% current health. Okay, so this is a buff to competitive because your Void Gates will not usually last their entire duration. But it's a nerf to competitive. So I really like that some of the itemization is being changed, although it seems like this is actually the only item that's getting changed right now. But I do like the change to ZZ'Rot because it does help. It does help it make it a more viable item in higher level play, but it definitely does hurt it in solo queue and lower level play where it's less likely for the opponents to respond properly to it. Okay, Summoner's Rift. Well, it's a nerf based on the time that it's going to be awake. But anyways. Oh, did I misspeak? Maybe I misspeak and said that it's a nerf to competitive. It's a nerf to solo queue, buff to competitive. Buff to competitive, nerf to solo queue. There you go. Sorry. Maybe I misspoke. Alright, Living Jungle. New mechanics come with growing pains. Okay, so general... okay, this is all just solo queue changes. There's nothing else, really. Pickup radius of fruit slightly reduced. Okay. Malzahar and Rengar can now be affected by allied blasting cone. Okay. Jungler experience. Okay, so this is nice. First clear. Merkwolf, Raptor, Krugs, and Gromp grant 25% less experience on first clear. Stacks additively with Ancient Krugs 50% reduced experience on first clear. Blue Sentinel 210 to 200. Red Brumbleback 210 to 200, Gromp 210 to 200, Krugs 45 to 35, Lesser Krugs 15 to 7, Crimson Raptor 15 to 20, Raptors 15 to 20 or 35. Okay, so the first thing that I noticed is that this actually helps buff some of the junglers that are really good at obviously clearing the Wraith. This is a buff to Ivern, and it just helps bring junglers a little bit more in line. But other than that, I don't think this really changes too much. So I don't really see the problem with it. It definitely is going to help with some of the junglers that are extremely oppressive that can get 6th level fast and they can clear very fast. Wait a fucking second. Hold on. Where the fuck is Rengar? This has to be some sick fucking joke. Wait a minute. Jayce and Rengar aren't banned. Oh my fucking god. Korea's doomed. Korea's fucking doomed. Where the fuck is Rengar? Holy shit. What the fuck? This is a sick joke. This is a really, really sick joke. Oh my god. You guys all better prepare for the 100% pick ban. 100 fucking percent pick ban. 100%. Oh my god. Maybe not in NA and EU. Maybe not in NA and EU because historically they didn't, you know, play Rengar to his like fullest. But 100% it's coming to LPL and LCK. Holy shit. This is some sick fucking joke. You nerf Shyvana, but apparently Rengar's not a problem. Oh my god. Well, God bless that. Twisted Tree Line, I don't really care about. League client update. Okay, this doesn't really have to do with the game itself. Bug fixes. Let me just browse over this, actually. Okay, that's nice for Shaco. That's nice for Bard. Okay. It doesn't look like there's any major things. And then obviously they're getting the skins coming out, so... Anyways, that's it for 7.1 rundown. Overall, I think that it is absolutely hilarious that Jayce and Rengar are absent from this. Overall, I think that the Syndra change helps competitive, the ZZ'Rot helps competitive, hurts SoloQ. The Ryze change is fair, Lucian is still garbage, Kalista is a joke. Kennen, I don't understand why he got nerfed, but Jayce goes untouched. The Karma change is fair. The Draven change is nice, but I don't think it's going to propel him into the meta. We're still going to see Camille in all of the major regions and all the major tournaments. I definitely think that the changes help bring her in line a little bit more with SoloQ. Anivia is still going to be fucking flying in the wind. But I think that's pretty much it. So, yeah. And now I think that I'm going to jump into the Warwick thing, because Warwick's supposed to be in this patch. Oh, man. Actually, no. Wait a second. Leblanc's not changed. Leblanc is not changed at all. Leblanc's not changed at all either. Oh my god. This is actually disgusting. Okay, so I foresee the problems already. Jayce, Leblanc, and Rengar. But it's a 10-ban system. Maybe they're actually, like, factoring that into the 10-ban system, and they're seeing how those champions are going to be banned. But I still don't think that's fair for SoloQ. So anyways, that concludes it. And, yeah.